Colin had a problem and a microphone to spare. Thomas took it up and so the podcast went to air. For weeks and months they trawled through every single DVD. They've unwrapped all the ones they can and now they're cellulose free. Now they're cellulose free.
Hello dear listener and welcome to Cellulose Free. My name is Colin and with me as always is my fellow film watcher, compadre and son Thomas.
Hi, hello.
What's up?
Sailing.
Oh. What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Well, the Giro d'Italia ended.
Hooray!
And Jai Hindley became the first Australian to win the overall Giro d'Italia.
Double hooray!
And the second Australian to have won a Grand Tour after Cadel Evans.
Triple hooray!
Yes. So that's over, and my cycling persona is going into hibernation until start of July.
You've got to wait that long before you get your dose of Men in Lycra again.
Yep.
Oh well.
That's how long it'll take. I also watched a 3-part, 3-hour-ish documentary about the failure of America's attempt at making a big collider, the superconducting super collider.
Yep.
That documentary produced by Bobby Broccoli.
Right.
I put it at PG for language, possibly.
Yep.
Australian PG.
Yep.
Yeah, it was good. I had a time with it.
So worth a watch?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was worth a watch. And I'll get a link to that in the description. Yeah.
Cool.
Stranger Things 4 came out, and I've watched that.
I have not.
You've not?
No. I have been aware that it is available, but it snuck in under the radar and was available before it registered. So I don't know whether I've not been looking at things that, I don't know.
Well, it's okay, because not all of it is available.
No, they're doing the traditional final season split.
That isn't for the final season.
Right.
They still have another season coming after.
Do they?
Yes,
I
they
thought
do.
this was the last season.
No.
Oh.
They have a 5th coming.
Really?
Yeah. And that is definitely the final season. Definitely. For sure.
So, spoiler free.
Spoiler free, it's more Stranger Things.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll be waiting for the rest of it to come out at the start of July.
Gee, July is just going to be...
So my Stranger Things watching persona also going into hibernation for a little bit. And a man disguised as an old woman in a wheelchair attacked the Mona Lisa with a cake.
In this random bit of news that will date this particular recording specifically.
He tried to break the glass first, and that didn't work out.
Oh, I didn't realise he'd tried to break... I thought that he'd done the smearing and that was it, but...
The Louvre in Paris... The Louvre?
The Louvre.
The Louvre in Paris has a wall, and part of that wall has been replaced with glass, and then inset, just a little bit, hangs the Mona Lisa. And the man attempted to break this section of the wall that was made of glass and failed and threw the cake anyway. Yeah. Because you've gone all that way.
Absolutely. You've hired the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And the old woman's dress.
Yep.
So you might as well smear the cake.
Yeah.
History is replete. Replete? Is that the word?
Sure.
I think this has stumped me before. It is full of stories of people trying to attack famous art and
with varying levels of success.
Yeah, and then with varying levels of success with restoring.
In this case, it was just cleaning the glass from the cake that had been thrown at it.
Was it good cake?
I don't know.
No, I don't know.
There's a lot of effort put into something that probably didn't do much for anyone involved.
So, just a question. You bring this up in the So What Have You Been Up To section of the podcast. So, you were responsible?
No, I just read about it, and that was what I was up to. What have you been up to?
I read a thing. That's what I've been up to.
Well, I watched some things, I read some things, and that was what I wanted to bring up. What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Nothing much, really. More walks.
Mm-hmm.
I went to visit my GP yesterday after a very long time not visiting my GP due to COVID, and no, that was a good catch-up. And got some goals set to improve my life a little bit, which includes kicking you out of the house. Yeah, under doctor's orders.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That tracks.
For my own health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
9 hours ago, as this podcast goes out, the AEC will have declared an seat.
No. Look, this is my turn now.
Yeah, well, you're struggling to come up with anything.
Sorry, did I find out whether you were woken at 3 o'clock this morning?
I was already awake at 3 o'clock.
That's right. You were in here.
Yes.
Yes. You had front row seats to the argy-bargy going on outside across the road. Yeah. So I'm running on empty sleep-wise, and I don't know where my headspace is concerning this film that we are about to watch, which is...
Blade Runner. Probably the final cut.
It's a somewhat ambiguous case, a Blu-ray case, that makes hints that it contains the final cut version on it.
It says it's 117 minutes long, which could
length.
Refer to the final cut.
Yes.
Or to the original theatrical
release. Yeah. I'm kind of hoping, and the fact that I've opened it, maybe it's got all of the versions on it? I don't know.
It might.
Who knows? We'll find out. But we are planning on watching the final cut, which is without Harrison Ford's forced monologues in film noir style that he was most resistant to doing, and therefore presented them fairly poorly.
Not that Ridley Scott wanted them anyway.
No. He had it wrestled from him by the company.
Then he wrestled a little back, and then he wrestled some more
and
back.
that is actually the version that I think I first saw, and saw it at the cinema when a 70mm print was discovered quite by accident. In fact, they didn't realise that's what they had until they started showing it at a film festival or something, and then realised, hang on, this doesn't have the really bad dialogue in it, and realised that, hang on, this might be a non-theatrical release. And then they had a big re-release of that version, and that's what I saw at the cinema.
And then, sometime later, the final cut.
Yeah, when he was allowed to go back and do exactly what he wanted to do with it, and that's what we're planning on watching today.
And it turned out to be the same length as the theatrical release.
Yeah. Would you be so kind as to tell our dear listener what the plot synopsis is that's written on the back of that Blu-ray case, if you can read it?
It's not much of a plot synopsis, I'll say. See if you can spot the plot synopsis in this.
In the heavily filled with self-congratulatory and name-dropping.
Philip K. Dick's haunting vision of the future comes to life in the landmark film that, quote, still represents the cutting edge of dark science fiction, unquote. Oscar nominee Harrison Ford, Golden Globe winner Rutger Hauer, and Sean Young star in this prescient neo-noir that blurs the line between man and machine. Did you spot it?
Yeah.
Did you spot the plot synopsis?
No.
No.
There was. And it's interesting that there's this heavy push on. This is based on Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. Neither of the screenwriters had read the book.
Really?
Is my understanding. Huh. And hence the name Blade Runner as well. That came from out of nowhere.
The name Blade Runner came from another film entirely unrelated to Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep that they liked the sound of, and so bought the rights to the title of another film also called Blade Runner. The brackets, a movie.
So that's what we're going to watch.
Yeah.
Thomas is going to take it out of its case. Actually, he's not, because, see, this is how my brain's working. I have actually put it in the machine. It's all ready to go. Well, there's probably a few menu skips away, but anyway, I'm rambling. Let's watch this thing.
Let's do that.
Yeah, we'll watch it and then we'll talk about it when we've watched it. So we'll catch you on the flip side.
Turn to side B.
B for Blade Runner.
Yes. Yes, as opposed to A for Aid Runner, which is what this part of the podcast has been.
You mongrel.
I try.
Very trying. So, what did you think?
It's tough. There are some bits in this film that I really like, and I really like the style of the film, but we linger too long on those parts where the style is the most important part.
Right.
And so the film feels, in those parts, just a little slow for my liking.
Right.
And the slowness is clearly the director's intent, because otherwise why would he leave it in his final cut?
Yep.
And this was the final cut that we watched.
Yep.
Just to be clear. But
It does feel long, doesn't it? And it isn't, in this day and age, it isn't necessarily a long movie. It doesn't quite hit 2 hours, so. But
there are longer films that don't feel as long.
Yeah. I took a little toilet break and had an epiphany whilst having said toilet break and realised what that very much felt like when comparing it to films of today. The era that this came out in was the era that I was quite into Doctor Who. And that particular era of Doctor Who was Tom Baker going into Peter Davison. And if you compare that Doctor Who, budgets aside, and effects aside, if you compare that to the Doctor Who of today, the whole style of storytelling is very much a paced thing. You'd have the Tom Baker and Peter Davison stories going over 3, 4 or 5 episodes, each ending in a cliffhanger with slow-paced storytelling in between. And there would be tense bits in each episode, but it would all build up to a cliffhanger. And then the next episode, that cliffhanger would be resolved, and then you'd go back into that steady pace, and then a cliffhanger again. You compare that to the Doctor Who of today, and it's just non-stop. You don't get a chance to breathe. It's manic, even. And I realised that it's much like comparing this, Blade Runner, the final cut, to, say, a Marvel film, where everything is just full on. You may get the occasional breather. It's almost as if it's a negative of of the films of today, where you get brief moments of manicness and then the slow pace, whereas in the movies of today, it's manic and then a breather and then manic again. And that does very much stand out to me in a lot of films that we've watched in this podcast, where the pacing has not aged well in comparison to what we are now used to. For me, at least, with this, that did not frustrate me anywhere near as much as some of the films that we've watched, where I think we've straight out said, this was slow.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, this was slow, but I think I well and truly immersed myself in this and felt comfortable. Comfortable is probably not the right word. It is not a comfortable film. It is dark and depressing and in places very brutal, but the sensibility of that pacing and the fact that, in all honesty, and maybe it's a nostalgia thing, as far as that Doctor Who comparison is concerned, I still more appreciate the pacing of a classic Doctor Who than the... If we pump this episode out as quickly as possible, no one will realise that it doesn't make sense.
Everyone will realise. What I should say is, I don't think this film is badly paced. Its pacing just isn't well pitched to me.
Yep. And whether that is a generational thing or not, I don't know. I am still in awe of how much so many films that came after this owe so much to the world building that went on in this. It was grungy and it was oppressive, and that has been done so many times since. But for me, at least, there is very much a recognition in those films past that Blade Runner is the mother of this. The whole world that has been established, the airships with the advertising on the sides of them, it's been done so many times since this. What is interesting, and I could be completely wrong here, but this is my opinion. So this was made in 82. And again, I've got to get my headspace into when this was made and the technology computer-wise at that time, and this projecting forward. So 82, based in 2019. So it's a number of decades afterwards. There have been so many science fiction movies that make bold predictions and get the tech wrong. And obviously, no, we don't have flying cars.
And no, we can't enhance a photo to be from a different angle.
Yeah. But all of those technologies, it still feels as if this is an alternate future from when it was set. It wasn't making bold predictions, I don't think, of... So in many ways, some of the technology in this was almost steampunk-like. And I think that was a deliberate ploy to go off in a direction that this is sort of retro-futuristic. So maybe a hedging of bets so that it already looks aged when it was made, but it's still future tech. I don't know whether any of that makes sense, but the enhancing, the computer, with the glitchy screen, it's not the glitching in the way that, say, the holographs in Star Wars happened, where looking at that, that's a future tech that is based in a galaxy, a long time ago, but you certainly couldn't watch a movie on those holographs.
No.
In Star Wars. So in that respect, it's going in a similar direction where, that's cool, but it's also, again, retro, I guess. Doing a lot of guessing.
Yeah.
So the zooming in and the voice control, it still sits well within the rest of the world that's been created, I think. I certainly didn't get frustrated with the tech in the way that a lot of sci-fi movies that made bold predictions got it so hideously wrong.
And speaking of tech, effects.
Yeah.
There's some great effects work in this.
Yeah.
Multiple exposure.
Yep.
Most prominently in those shots of fire over the city at the start and throughout. And the miniatures work.
Yeah.
All that greebling.
Yep.
So much.
Yep. And the landing of the craft, the flying cars, is not clunky.
No.
You see a lot of clunkiness in that type of miniature work around this era, but this is just so smooth. It's really, really held up well as far as that is concerned. And honest lens flares. And but yeah, the light and dark and the colour and the intensity of
This film can be very darkly lit at times, but you're never missing anything because of it.
That's right, yeah. Getting back to tech, I did note that one of the phone numbers was 555.
No. Yeah.
Sorry, the one and only phone number that comes up on the screen is a 555 number. A prediction that does bug me, though, is that ties would still be a thing. And it is very much the film noir crossover steampunky type in that certain clothes have gone retro and you've also got futuristic costuming. But honestly, would you wear a tie if you're in crime?
No.
You're just asking to be strangled with your own tie. So
and he was.
And he was. The last thing that I've got in my notes, which brings us back to why we watched this in the first place, was that Vangelis composed the soundtrack to this, and he passed away recently. It is so very much a character of this film as well. It continues that world building. It's so right with it. and I love it.
It's so very of its time and not in a bad way.
Yeah, yep. I don't think I saw this until my very late teens. And yet I used the soundtrack to the very first film production that I made in year 11. So it was basically a silent film, silent action film, due to the fact that we didn't have the ability to record with the audio with the cameras that we had outside of the studio. But I used the closing soundtrack to this as the basis for this silent movie that I made. Well, it's just
the good news is times have changed since then, and you can take out the cameras from the studio.
Well, this was a case of, at that stage, the college was well known for its corridor movies, because you'd pull out the camera to the full length of its cable within the studio, open the studio door, wheel the camera out on its tripod, and film from there.
There are certainly some corridors around that studio.
Yeah. So this was a run around Rosny College and up these stairs and through these doors and using that piece of music. I love that film. I really do.
Yeah. I do not fault anyone who loves this film, because it is good. It's just the pacing doesn't quite work for me.
Yep.
And that's okay.
Yep.
When the pacing does work for me, though, it is very good. It's excellent when the pacing works for me. Very intense, strong images. The woman falling through all those panes of glass.
Yeah.
The death of Tyrell.
Yeah.
Having his head crushed and his eyes poked in.
An extremely brutal scene, but also edited well enough that it isn't over the top. It could so easily have been over the top.
And Rutger Hauer plays Roy Batty so well. Especially in the latter half of the movie, when the character goes off the rails just a bit.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, this is his film, not Harrison Ford's. Is that a bold statement? I don't.
Hot take. Harrison Ford isn't actually acting that well in this film.
No. My understanding is he did clash a lot with the director and did clash a lot with some of the actors. But yeah, Rutger Hauer was just marvellous in this. Those eyes. And it was, the conditions that they were filming in too. All of that water. It was just... It looked miserable. It really did look miserable.
Okay, so I know we're out here in the wet. We've been absolutely belting water at you for the past half hour. But could we take that again, please?
Oh dear. Get me a towel.
Sorry, continuity has told me that there's only so much we can do about that.
One tidbit that I did pick up before we watched it, the scene in the alleyway where Sebastian gets out of his vehicle and frightens, in quote marks, what was her name?
Pris,
yes. Played by Daryl Hannah. And Daryl Hannah races away and smashes into Sebastian's car.
Uh-huh.
That wasn't meant to happen.
Oh.
She slipped. And the vehicle wasn't designed for the glass to break. It was normal plate glass. It wasn't stunt glass.
Huh.
And she mashed up her elbow really bad, but continued to act. She broke her elbow in, like it was shattered into 9 places or something crazy like that, and still has the scars. So, yeah.
Huh.
So there we go. That's a little tidbit for you. Do you have anything else you wish to?
You were talking about eyes, and
yes.
There's some really good reflections in eyes.
Yes.
I only noticed it on replicants and that's fake
very
animals.
Very deliberate. I mean, because the animals were replicants too. So it was a fleeting indicator of those with such a reflection, quite likely replicants. Which makes it interesting because there are occasions where you almost catch it in Harrison Ford's eyes. So, what does that mean? Who is to say?
All of the creative staff on the film disagree
exactly
on this question.
There is great debate and disagreement, and Harrison Ford himself was adamant that no, he's not. Otherwise, it betrays the entire premise at the end of the film. It's not human versus machine. It's machine versus machine, and it's not accomplishing. There is no moral. Yeah. Anyway.
And then Blade Runner 2049 comes along and uses a replicant as a Blade Runner, just explicitly.
Yes. Spoilers.
Spoilers for the beginning of that film.
Yes. Okay. Do you have anything else you wish to?
No. I think
it's a really hard one to tackle.
Yeah.
Really, because it is anything we say is rubbish. We aren't Roger Ebert or Margaret and David.
No.
And it has been covered and covered and covered so much. So anything that we say is whatever. But it was. I wasn't looking forward to watching this today because I've seen it quite a few times and fairly recently, but I still enjoyed it this time around.
You're totally wrong. One star.
Oh, Margaret. Margaret, no. I disagree. I give it 5 stars.
Oh.
And on that note, we might move on.
We might, yes.
The following segment has no title. We apologise for the inconvenience.
Over on Discord, there was a brief discussion about barn raisings.
Yes, right.
But particularly in reference to an episode of Pinky and the Brain, which apparently
Pinky and the Brain,
which apparently features a parody of the Amish and some number of barn raisings. But I haven't watched any Pinky and the Brain.
It's hard to get over here.
Yeah.
I think I was actually the target audience when it came out, but didn't catch enough of it. Because even though, in a lot of ways, it was very much the traditional Warner Brothers animation in that the adults, in fact, got more out of it than the kids. And Pinky and the Brain was very much in that category. The references, the political references that it made were very adult. But it was never on at a time where I was available to watch it, and we didn't have a VCR, so didn't tape it, and yeah. But I'm well and truly familiar, and did see a reasonable amount of it, but I do not recall an Amish episode.
Apparently, the film Witness sparked a rise in interest in the Amish and depictions of the Amish in the succeeding years.
Yeah.
And I mean years, because apparently interests moved more slowly back then, I'm told.
Oh dear. Was Into Osferatu involved in that?
Was involved, but did not submit a guess this week.
Oh, for shame. So that means that we do have
a comment over on YouTube.
We do.
From Dunkel.
Hi, Dunkel.
Which contains only a guess.
and fair enough. I think we deserve that and nothing else.
And that guess was WITNSS, which is along the right lines.
Very, very close.
But you've removed the wrong letter.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. Helen's written a novel. 2 novels.
Yeah, I seem to recall that happened.
And I can't... yes, I see a guess.
And it is the same guess
as Dunkel's. Yes. Helen and Dunkel both guessed WITNSS. I actually ended up with WITNES. So, no winners there. Sorry.
But, try your luck this week.
That's right.
See where it gets you.
Thomas has a look at what I went for.
Yeah, that's gettable.
It is gettable. All right.
Do you want to do more Vangelis reminiscing?
Go ahead. You can read the first thing that dear listener Helen wrote.
The one about Vangelis?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yep.
It's possible you'll do more Vangelis reminiscing next week. But I remember playing Elite on the Amstrad with its Strauss Blue Danube Waltz soundtrack, while also listening to John and Vangelis. Which
actually belonged to me, and I think you got copies. I was the Vangelis collector. And poisoned everyone else.
It sounds as if I should watch Witness. Probably should watch Blade Runner 2, since I don't think I have.
Yes.
Oh, and wrong guess. Finally on time for once, but probably wrong as usual.
Yes, indeed, you were wrong. Then went on to talk about calendars. Last week we mentioned whether weeks start on a Monday or a Sunday. And Helen grew up with Sunday to Saturday calendars. And I vaguely recall that.
I should admit, I don't think I said last week, because I got all wrapped up in anchor days. I do prefer Sunday to Saturday, but I am also in charge of producing the family calendar for a household that works Monday to Sunday.
Yeah. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is that I spent almost 10 years as a payroll clerk. So working with time and attendance, your week very much was Monday to Sunday, and everything within the retail environment where I was working was Monday to Sunday. However, it got a little more confusing in the case of, we didn't deal in months though. We worked in periods, and they varied in length. You'd have 4-week periods and 5-week periods, and so you'd end up with 13 periods in a year, but sometimes you get 14 periods in a year, and it was, yeah.
What doesn't help is that months start and end on different days of the week.
That's right.
Constantly, which is why there exists an ISO standard set of weeks that may begin before or after the actual beginning of the year.
That's right. That's very much what we were used to.
You'd get to the end of 2022 and it would already be 2023 in the ISO system.
That's right, yep. All right, I think we covered pretty much everything on Facebook there.
Good luck with Wednesdays, Helen.
Yes.
I believe that was it
I think
on
that's
engagement this week.
Yep. So, we might move on.
Pick a film for next week so we can go to bed. It's your turn.
It is my turn. And I am going to do something radical.
Oh, you're gonna unwrap that skateboard out there?
I am. Yeah, and race it down the hallway.
Yeah,
I don't
radical.
I want you to switch off your My Movies database. Because there has been a recent edition, and I'm somewhat anxious to see it, and you haven't seen it. So I thought that I would pick that. So I say it's a recent edition, but it is a movie that came out in 1983.
Okay, so we're still in the 80s.
Sorry about that. Yes, we are still in the 80s.
We've been spending so long in the 80s.
1983. So I was in year 9 in 1983. But I did not see this at the cinema. I do not know whether this even got a cinematic release in Australia. It is a Disney film.
Okay.
But is not on Disney Plus.
Huh.
So it falls in that realm of, we will grudgingly admit that it was made by Disney, but we will keep it in very small letters, and we won't show it on Disney Plus. I don't know what's going on there.
Well, then I'm probably not going to be able to guess it.
You may be able to, though.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. There is a whole novel here. Okay. I'm going to read the novel. What price would you pay to have your deepest desires come true? That is the question posed to the citizens of Greentown, Illinois, by a seductive stranger named Mr. Dark, played by Jonathan Pryce, proprietor of Dark's Pandemonium Carnival, a shadowy travelling carnival fueled by the greed of the average man, by the torment of dreams grown old. 2 young boys are intrigued by Mr. Dark's promise of wild animals, the most beautiful woman in the world, and a dust witch, so they decide to investigate. When they realise the carnival's deadly and destructive secret, the boys turn to the town's librarian, Charles Halloway, played by Jason Robards, for help. It is now up to Halloway to save them and all of Greentown from the deadly creatures of the carnival. A beautifully crafted adaptation of Ray Bradbury's internationally best-selling novel, this spine-tingling fantasy reaches the outer limits of evil temptations and supernatural thrills.
Right. I've not worked it out.
You've got nothing?
No.
No, okay. In which case I will not hold you in suspenders any longer.
Ow, stop, ow.
I will lower you down.
Oh, thank you.
Release the wedgie. Okay, so next week we're watching Disney's 1983. We honestly didn't make this, but you may stumble upon it, because it's Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Oh.
So there we go. A very dark film from my recollection.
I was never going to peg that title to that description.
Well, see, I wasn't sure how familiar you were with Ray Bradbury's writings. So it is based on a best-selling novel of his. So that's what we're watching. And we'll have a bit of discussion on that. We hope that you can join us when we watch Something Wicked This Way Comes next week. But until then, we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
You have been listening to Cellulose Free. Your hosts were Colin, who produces and edits the show, and Thomas, who makes the artwork and music. Cellulose Free is recorded in the Deranged Cat Studios in scenic Tasmania, Australia. We keep track of our extensive physical media collection through My Movies, which we highly recommend. You can find links to that, as well as other places you can find us in the show notes. Cellulose Free is a Hi Hello production.
Red leather, yellow leather.
Both? Both colours of leather?
Yes.
Interesting choice. You can't get them separately.
No.
If you order 100 kilos of red leather,